So what are we looking to cover today from a UHR perspective? So we are leading experts in the field of human resources and organisational development. I'll be going through some areas, as I mentioned, do step in at any point in time if you've got questions. The areas that I want to focus on are, what are those employment matters that we're having to deal with in today's current circumstances? How do we implement meaningful workplace wellbeing solutions? How do we develop our people and our organisations, and touching on, because I covered it on Tuesday, so just a little bit more around creating your new normal way of working post-lockdown. For those that already know UHR, you'll realise that for us, as I mentioned just now, and as John praised us for, it really is all about the people. And our strapline has become ever more prevalent right now as we've been working through various situations with our clients, and as an SME ourselves, supporting the whole family of UHR. With everything we do, we listen, understand, action and achieve. They're our values. Our behaviours underpin our values. We are one, and our passion lies in helping others out in the community at every opportunity. So that's what I intend to do with this session, kind of branching out and looking at different areas of our UHR tree. We've been tracking the Office of National Statistics data amongst other sources, so I just wanted to share this with you so you can start to get to see how we are focusing on some of the current issues that the employers are having to face. Over around 4 in 10 adults that were surveyed are saying that the most common impacts, as is on previous weeks, so this is weekly data that ONS is capturing, so concerns around being furloughed, needing to work from home, and changes to do with working hours. The largest change in this data was a 19% increase from week previous regarding health and safety at work, understandably so. So these are the 4 areas, the top 4 on this slide, that I will be concentrating on. So I guess now is a good time for me to say to you to think about what mechanisms are you going to be using to maintain your business voice, to keep communicating with your employees, board members if you have a board, your suppliers, your partners, your clients, and how are you ensuring that you're keeping them abreast of your plans, and indeed how do their plans impact on your work, particularly if they're needing to come on site, or if it's again a supply chain and you need to feel assured that there's going to be as best as seamless transactions for your business moving forwards. And all of this is again information that's key to keep your employees informed. So also think about what do you want and need to change regarding current ways of working, and how you can keep your finger on the pulse of employee health, ensuring that you provide that safe place of work and preserve the workplace wellbeing that you need to preserve, whatever the circumstances are that you're having to work through. How are you planning and prioritising what you need to deal with first, and also planning prioritising who needs to return to the workplace and how this can best happen, or even if you're continuing to work remotely, how can that best be sustained? How will your employees start going out and about in terms of business, if they need to go out and about, and what modes of travel will they use, in terms of ensuring that they maintain social distancing, minimising the use of public transport if they need to use public transport, how are you just generally keeping them safe and well. So the reassurance of that health and safety in the workplace in the broadest sense, even if they are going out and about, is vitally important for your employees to keep hearing and seeing that, particularly when you look at just how much we've had a jump in those statistics of people feeling concerned around health and safety to return to the workplace. So there we go. So next slide. So from the ONS data, as I mentioned, a key area for health and safety being a concern. So digging a little bit deeper in that, some of the concerns that those that responded are saying is that they're feeling it difficult to follow social distancing advice. difficult to follow the hygiene advice required, and whether or not they have the right protective equipment in place. So you can see up on the top left of the screen there, Aston and James, who have been phenomenal, I would say, throughout lockdown. Phenomenal in general in any case. We've worked with them for a long time, and they've played a pivotal role in helping us, again, as part of our data gathering, to really identify how social distancing can be maintained, keeping people safe, whether they're in work or working remotely as well. So we've run a couple of surveys, as you can see there. Aston and James have equally done the same, and we're looking to collaborate once we've gathered all of our data and produced some content that you'll start to see out on social media. Watch this space, coming sometime soon. So a couple of points just to touch on with this slide. How have you risk assessed before people return to the workplace, and continue to risk assess, to monitor your plans so you can proactively manage any issues that arise or mitigate any risks? The changes to lockdown restrictions are gradual and affecting different sectors differently, and possibly even, will fluctuate. We need to wait and see in terms of government guidelines and plans. Those measures could be introduced, if they are to change, and imposed quite quickly. So how equipped are your plans to be prepared to manage? We need to make sure that we're encouraging where we can, minimal employees on site, staggering start times, shifts, rotas, etc., etc. There's a lot of information coming out on that. Plenty of ventilation in the workspace, and reduction of communal spaces where possible. Ideally, doing away with, or if not, being very vigilant if you are using hot desking. Obviously, if you've got shared office space, how are you, as a tenant, are you ensuring that your landlord's helping you to make sure that the workplace is safe to operate in? Paying particular attention to staff that have got concerns with any requirements. So perhaps you've got staff that have needed to have reasonable adjustments put in place. Do they stay the same as they return to the workplace, or if they're working remotely? Is further adjustment required to make sure that they can best fulfill their job in the right way? Similarly, if we've got people that didn't necessarily have any mental health concerns, but as part of this lockdown experience, or in getting ready to return to the workplace, are starting to experience some mental health challenges. So how are we helping employees to overcome them? We're seeing a real drive for remote working, and very much to try and encourage, now more than ever, I would say, to take a break. We're all guilty of working relentlessly and not taking that moment to break. And I think now more than ever, that's vitally important. I'm just going to pause for a minute so I can see if we've got some questions coming in, John.
We have indeed. Actually, one from me.
One from you?
One was from me with regard to, can you read it, or?
If people have very different roles, is it that one?
Yeah.
And run different risks in terms of operating procedures, how can that challenge be manageable? I think that's a really good point. I would start with looking at an organisational structure, and seeing how different categories apply to different staff. So for us, we've got NHS clients, for example. Some are office-based, some are out delivering clinical services. Some are able to work remotely. So I think coming up with some kind of matrix that, if you look at your organisational structure and see what areas apply to what individuals, so then you can kind of come up with more specific guidelines for the different staff groups, I would say would be key. Do we have another question? Nick, what solutions are organisations implementing to aid people's behaviour on health and safety? That's a really good point, Nick. I think there's a lot coming out from HSE. I think there's a lot coming out from other sources. Yes, we've got public health, Mind are brilliant with a lot of their guidance, our own professional body, CIPD. I think there's a raft of sources out there. I think the visual, so, you know, posters, if we have got a workplace, you know, strap lines on emails, if we can put some tags to remind us there, screensavers, communications, standard questions for managers to ask employees, and checklists for managers to go through to make sure that they're proactively and consistently monitoring that with all their staff, I would say is key. I hope that answers the question. Sally, if people are working remotely, how can organisations manage their staff back and seating issues? So as this slide explains, Sally, you know, it's a challenge. It's a challenge for us in UHR. We've got a lean office space now, so we're not able to have the whole team back at one point in time, given the 2 metre rule and the fact that we now need to work back to back or side to side. So there's some real logistic planning that needs to be put in place, I would say. I will move on to the next slide, and I will just make sure that we've got enough time for more questions afterwards. So if we've got some logistical activity around unfurloughing staff, what do we need to make sure we do? So this is a common question that we're being asked. We always need to make sure we're writing to that individual, making sure that everything that we've made clear as they went into furlough, so a letter or an agreement that set that out, to do with pay, terms that may have changed, the job role, anything that's changed as they're coming back, we need to make sure that that's being made clear. If we need to get their agreement, if changes are being made, then we need to set that out clearly to all employees. Of course, you need to inform payroll. You may want to do a health review. So if people perhaps have had a period of ill health, they've had to isolate because presenting symptoms, or just if we feel that well-being is being compromised. So, you know, a health review, we're suggesting if you haven't got an occupational health provider, we're suggesting that our clients do a kind of check-in meeting at the point of return for managers to pick up and again go through certain areas and continue to go through those areas as employees start to return. Any kit that went out, obviously making sure you've got an audit of kit coming back in or kit continuing to be out if remote working continues, and clarifying, you know, the expectations, I guess, of what's changed and making sure it's key. If you're continuing to have staff on furlough, if staff are in work or working remotely, you know, make sure those communications are reaching everyone. I think very much in the early days, we were having inquiries of, well, you know, if someone's furloughed, I'm not allowed to speak with them or communicate. You absolutely can. They're a vital part of your organisation. If you've got further changes you need to make, some of our clients are needing to look at considering reducing hours. And again, as I said, you know, changes like that is where you're going to require a consultation and agreement to be reached before you make those changes. If it's changed on a temporary basis, that could be introduced as part of the flexible furlough scheme into October to support you and to support the employees. If you're looking to reduce that headcount, you know, where you might be able to do a recruitment freeze, you might be able to reduce overtime, put freeze on that for now. There could be all sorts of different areas of where you might be able to manage your headcount and consider those that might want to opt in. So voluntary redundancy, for example, people considering retirement. If there's a vacancy and someone's job's going to go, you might be able to redeploy. All sorts of different arrangements that could be considered. You can agree any temporary or permanent contractual change, i.e. for part-time working, but I guess it would be prudent to wait until, as I mentioned, the furlough scheme ends, just to make sure, you know, whilst you can impose changes from a legal perspective, such as dismissal and re-engagement, they're complex areas, so I would want you to take your time and seek advice and work that through. We're not suggesting that you make unilateral changes. You may be looking to do so, but I guess making sure that you've got the stability that you need for any changes and engage your employees with your thinking before you move forward to introduce any change, and as always be prepared for questions that might come in.